Hello, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Douglas Johnson. I am a certified yoga teacher at the advanced 500-hour level. I'm a musician, kirtan artist, and ordained minister. And today I wanted to speak a little bit about not forgetting your body. So before I get into today's talk, I do want to thank the community that supports these talks. They're over on Patreon, and they make a monthly contribution that allows me to offer this content without any kind of paywall, which is like, this is how I like to work. So if you feel called and you'd like to join that community, please check out the links below. You can also make a one-time contribution. You can help out also by purchasing merch. My friend and I designed some cool merchandise that you might enjoy. And you can also simply help out by liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting. All right, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about not forgetting your body. And what do I mean by this? Well, one thing I've noticed is even with long-time meditators, people who've been meditating a long time, I'm not sure why this is or what is going on, but there can be a tendency to really be in our heads and to think that enlightenment is just all about our head. And in my experience, this isn't really the case. So what I mean by this is, let's say something happens and we get triggered, and we might know we shouldn't be upset. And yet, if we feel upset, we're upset, right? That's the litmus test for us as human beings, is how we feel. It's not what we think. So as an example, if I were to give you a very scary thought, like the boogeyman is under your bed, it's a scary thought, but you don't feel afraid right now, do you? I mean, it just, unless the body makes it real, it's not real to us unless the body feels it. By the same token, if someone says something like, you're worthless, even though that's obviously not true, if we believe it, if the body believes it, the body responds, then that is a hurtful thing, a hurtful statement. It affects us deeply. Okay, so I hope you're tracking along with what I'm saying here. It's almost the opposite of what they say in The Matrix, where there's that scene where I think Neo first goes back into the Matrix and something happens and he comes out and he's like bleeding from his mouth or his nose. And they tell him that if you die in the Matrix, your body dies because the mind makes it real. So this is a little bit the opposite of that. I can tell you all kinds of scary things. The Russians are coming, whatever it is. If you don't believe it, if the body doesn't respond, then even if it's true, it's not upsetting. I once read that they gave people some kind of sedative or some kind of drug that relaxed all their muscles. And then they told them upsetting things, upsetting news, showed them upsetting images. And they just couldn't feel bad because they couldn't contract the muscles in their body. Okay, so this is, I feel this is a really important point to make. And what I've found talking with people is very often, even longtime meditators, they're very good at seeing through the illusion of thoughts and ideas. So they might know that they shouldn't get upset. They might know that somebody is behaving poorly because that person's actually in a lot of distress. They may know they should feel compassion. They might know they should feel gratitude. They might know all of these wonderful things that awakeness, you could say, brings to the mind. And yet, if they don't feel it, it feels very hollow. It feels false. It doesn't really feel like we're awake or enlightened, because we're feeling one way and our mind is telling us another way. So this is a weird kind of, almost like a spiritual bypassing, where it's like we're trying to deny how we feel. Now, if you watched my talk a few weeks ago, I think was titled, "Don't Believe What You Feel," this is related with that. So again, we can't believe necessarily how we feel, because we can feel all sorts of things. We can feel things for no reason. We can also feel things, again, for ideas, either that we produce or that have been in our mind, or that others give to us that actually aren't true. So, in the yogic tradition and in the tantric tradition, there is this idea of Shiva and Shakti. Okay? And Shiva is considered consciousness or awareness, and Shakti is energy or form. And these two, you could say in a certain respect, it's like these two are separate from one another, or they're in a type of tug of war. And one way that this was expressed to me is, as a human being, you have all these thoughts about right and wrong, good and bad, and yet we have these energies that come up from below, right, seemingly down here, that cause us to maybe betray what we think is right or proper or good. So we have these sort of needs or wants of the physical body. And it's like, oh, I need to eat. If we get hungry enough, who knows what we might do. I need a partner. I need respect or love, all these things. We feel these things in our body, and those things seem to betray maybe what we think we should be doing or acting, how we should be acting, whatever it is. So this is the interplay of Shiva and Shakti. Again, Shiva, awareness, consciousness, thought, and then Shakti, these energies, these emotions, these feelings that come up. Okay, so this is a very crude sort of breakdown of this teaching. So these two seemingly are in a tug of war. And one of the ways we can think about yoga practice, one of the things we're trying to do, is to unify these two so they are not in conflict. They're actually working together. And I'm not so sure that that is simply a exercise of mind over matter. Maybe it is, I don't know for sure, but I suspect it's about harmony, it's about unity, it's about oneness. And so what I find talking with meditators, people who've been practicing for a long time, again, even people who've been practicing for decades, is it's the body that trips us up. So why is this? It's interesting, isn't it? It's like, oh, well, I got upset, and so I yelled, and I shouldn't have yelled, or I got triggered, and I did or said this or that. So to me, this is an interesting phenomenon. And the tantric teaching, again, is that ultimately everything that is in the world of form is ultimately just energy. So we have our consciousness or our awareness, and then we have energy. I spoke earlier about, thoughts of being in the mind, but really, ultimately, thoughts are also energy. But so we have these energies that arise, that come up, and the awareness is there. I think what happens to many people, at least in the modern setting, is people begin meditating and they begin to observe their thoughts. And they get really good at that. And they get really good at sort of weeding out thoughts that maybe are ultimately not true versus thoughts that maybe are more true. This can be a little trickier than I'm describing because there are things called Velcro thoughts where a thought and an emotion or feeling are tied together, so we might believe those thoughts more. But let's just say for today's discussion that we're not going to consider those Velcro thoughts, and we can see through thoughts and see the untruth of a thought. In reality, no thought is ultimately true. A thought is a limited conception. It's kind of like a snapshot. So you take a snapshot of something. Does that represent that thing for all time and all eternity? No, it doesn't. And so thoughts are like that. Thoughts are just so limited that they can't really encapsulate truth, and things are constantly evolving. So the tantric view is you have awareness, the container, and then you have these things that arise within the container of awareness, the forms, the energies. So again, Shiva would, in this teaching, represent the container, and then Shakti would represent everything that is showing up in the container. So as I give this talk and I think about this, it's as though the meditator gets very good at dealing with one type of arising or form, which is thought. This is what it seems to me. Now, people get pretty good at seeing through their thoughts if they've been meditating for a while regularly. But what I'm finding is people are not as skilled or skillful at dealing with what they feel. And again, from my perspective as a human being and from working with other human beings, it's really what we feel that tends to make things really real, makes them feel real, makes us feel bad. We all want to feel good, right? So what happens if we know everything is okay, we know we're living a blessed life, and yet we don't feel like we are, okay? So the tantrics teach that generally energy, and so again, everything is a form of energy except for awareness, and they teach that energy is just moving and flowing and changing, that this is really its nature. And of course, different objects, different things, they will evolve or change at different speeds. But generally, something like an emotion or feeling is something that wants to move through. So what is happening when we have emotion that lingers? Well, generally, and I've discussed this before, it means we're resisting on some level. Maybe we're believing on some level. But one of the things that has really helped me and that I want to share with you, and I've shared this before, but I thought today would be a good time to talk about it again, is taking the time to feel what we're feeling. Taking the time to be with the emotions that we're feeling. And my recommendation is don't label them. Don't judge them. Don't be in a rush to push them away. See if you can clear some time to really be present with them, to be curious about them, to investigate, maybe to ask some questions, instead of being in such a rush to just push them off. And so that's the Shakti element. And what the yogic or tantric teaching is that Shiva and Shakti, really what we're trying to do with yoga is to unite these two together, to bring them together. So what does that mean in terms of our body? It means being willing to be fully aware. So again, my sense as a teacher is many people start meditating and they become very aware of their thoughts, which is very helpful. I don't want to downplay the importance of that. That is a very important step. But what I've seen, again, even with longtime meditators, is I think they're missing the body part of it. So moving down into the body, this can be done in meditation, but this can also be done as a kind of a separate meditation, where I often do it actually laying down with my eyes closed in a semi-yoga nidra state. And I just allow myself to feel what I'm feeling fully and completely. And so again, this is bringing awareness, Shiva, to the form, Shakti, right? Uniting the two. How do you unite the two? Well, you fully allow them to merge. You allow yourself to merge with that emotion, with that feeling, with that discomfort, whatever it might be. And I think conventionally we don't see any benefit to doing this. We feel, well, okay, I feel the pain. You know, that doesn't mean anything. It's not going to do anything. But my experience is it does. It does do something. And it does transform. Another teaching from the yogic tradition is that you can't fight darkness. The only thing you can do with darkness or shadow, if we're talking in psychological terms, is bring the light to the shadow, the darkness, and then it disappears. Okay? So what is the light? That is the light of awareness. So what we're trying to do, you could say, if we're on a spiritual path, is we're trying to light every corner of our being. And I think a lot of people get that, again, or they're maybe the easier part of it, or the more obvious part is thoughts. Oh, I shouldn't believe this, or oh, that's not true, or whatever it might be. But what about the body? And this is one of the reasons why I like being a yoga teacher, is ultimately we're trying to bring awareness down into the body and to feel deeper into the body and to accept the body, to love the body, all the different sensations that it produces, all the different emotions that come from it. And how do we love it? We pay attention to it. We bring awareness to it, rather than when it isn't feeling good, when we don't feel good, when we are having trouble trying to escape, trying to run away, trying to fix. Again, maybe there's nothing that needs to be fixed. Maybe we just need to pay attention. Maybe we just need to love what we're experiencing or what is arising, right? This Shiva and Shakti analogy is one of a sort of a lovers reunited, right? So how do we create that experience of love between the consciousness or the awareness and every aspect of what's arising? So yes, thoughts are arising, but also what we call emotions And this is maybe where I should break down a little bit more granularly, because some people may not realize this, but emotions are just contractions that we feel in the viscera of our body. You don't believe me? Pay attention. Next time you're upset, you will feel sensation in a part of your body, and that will signal to your brain, tell your brain that you're upset, or you're angry, or you're jealous, or you are depressed. Whatever it is, it shows up in our body, in the experience of our body. So this is the thing that, again, I find people, these things show up, and then they might even come to me and be like, well, what should I do? What am I doing wrong? What practice do I need to do to get rid of this thing? Well, if you're paying attention, then hopefully you're hearing is maybe that isn't something that we should be rejecting or trying to get rid of. The very idea of, oh, I need to get rid of this thing. I need to fix this thing. And I get it. In a sense, it is an indication that something is maybe not aligned. Okay, something isn't right. But that might be actually the resistance to that thing. I know that sounds strange, but we might be feeling that there's a problem because we're already subtly resisting something. I hope that makes sense. So if we weren't subtly resisting it, then the energy or the form would arise and decay like all other forms, and it wouldn't really be an issue or a problem. But because we're like, oh, yep, don't want to feel that, can't feel that, then we're actually creating resistance to it and identifying it as a problem. So it's a little bit of, I don't know, it's a little circular, where it maybe the only reason it's a problem is because we are identifying it as such, and then so it is showing up or feeling that way. All right, everyone. So I hope that this was helpful. I'd love to hear from you. Please comment below, reach out if you think I can be helpful. I'd love to hear your experience. Until next time, namaste, and have a beautiful, beautiful day.